Hello there.
Morning, Kevin. It's, for anybody that knows, you can hear it already. It's gonna be a great day. I'll be with you in just a minute. All right, guys, good morning. Sorry I made you wait so long to see me. I still gotta turn on my watch and all of the other shit for you. Good morning. It's a morning. I'm Spartan John. Hi, welcome to the awesome. It is it's a Thursday. We read today. That's what we do. Hi. Good morning. Um we're live on YouTube and on Twitch because it's a reading day, and so we always try to be in both places. So hi YouTubers, welcome. Sorry we've been missing you, and we've had trouble with the internet, so it's been one of those things. We're working on it. We're gonna try to get it all squared away, and we'll get it. We'll get you all situated. We're at 192 subs on YouTube. Thank you, all 192 of you who keep returning for the quality of content that we generate for you several days a week. This is what I got for you, I guess. It's gonna be a good day today. I think it's nice to be back into a book. We're into a brand new book today. It's gonna be amazing. I'm really excited about it. I'm just it's the new Kelly Gay book. It's the end. It comes after the end of the Halo Infinite game. Looking at it, I'm a little bummed that it is. It's really short. But we'll talk about that in a second. I just send in one more message. Somebody just wished me a happy new year, and I don't want to forget about them before I do it. Normally I'm just always all about you guys, but this message came in, and I was like, Jesus, I better send this back before I forget. Most definitely. Stand by one more second here. Okay. So anyway, so we got a good book. It's gonna be great. I got my Book Daddy cup here for you guys all to see. We're gonna have a good day today. I think we've got ambient wonders on board in the background as sound. It is. Whoops, sorry about that. Really loud today. How can you guys hear it? Can you guys hear it? Okay. It's really loud in my ear today. So maybe my ears are doing better. Who knows? You guys hear it okay? Okay, good. Yeah, I don't want it to be too loud. It's turned down to like 10% on the YouTube, so the fact that I hear it so loud is crazy to me today. Anyway, I'm trying to think if there's anything I'm missing before we get going here. Oh, New Year's was great. We went over to a family event over at our friend's house, Kristen and Larry's. They're great people. We got to see all of the kids. We got to see the nieces and the nephews, and that was cool. We were home by 10 o'clock I was in my bed at 10:30 last night. I did, in fact, see midnight happen. I was awake for that, surprisingly. But I was in my bed at 10:30. I watched an episode of Star Trek last night with my wife. She fell asleep. It was the episode, the ship in a bottle episode, where the Enterprise goes into the asteroid field, and they find this old frigate, like war cruiser from like thousands of years ago. Like, humans weren't even in space yet when these guys were battling, and they get stuck in the asteroid field because of reasons. And Geordi goes into the holodeck, and he generates a hollow girlfriend from the engineer that built the ship. And anyway, it's a good episode. It's worth watching. It's one of my favorites. You can go check it out. You get the bubblies of the brew from the coffee from Leah Brahms. That's right, Leah Brahms. You're right, Dr. Brahms. Yeah. Anyway, it's a good episode. We watched that, and then yeah, I don't know. I watched some Unsolved Mysteries with Robert Stack until I passed out. I love that show. Last night they were doing some mysteries from the 80s. They were like, really old show. Didn't like they lost the ship. Well, the ship was the old ship was stranded in the asteroid field, and all the crew and the captain, they all died on the ship. Um, Obviously that didn't happen in next gen. The Enterprise did not die because we wouldn't have had any more TV after that. So should have been able to retrieve it. I bet you that they did. It's probably not covered anywhere in a book or anything like that, but I'm sure that that was probably something that Starfleet was able to go in and figure out. Um, Maybe not. Did they destroy it at the end? I can't remember. I just watched the damn thing last night. Did they blow it up? Maybe they did blow it up at the end. Maybe they shot a torpedo. I thought they left a buoy that was like, "Hey, this is a thing," but who knows? I have to go back and I have to pay closer attention to that little piece of the plot cuz yeah, I feel pretty good, and I just watched it last night and I just can't recall that. That's craziness. Anyway, guys, we're also live on Twitch. Thank you. 1,890 of you today. We're 110 from 2,000. That's amazing. Um, uh, about like, just wow. Uh, it's amazing. I just had to take a moment, have some stock in that. 166 subs this morning. Every person who gifts, donates, or subs on their own, thank you so much for the support. Every one of you, absolutely amazing. Please check out a few things for me. I'm going to give you. This is our music, always. Ambient Wonders, right over the top of every read that we do. It's provided by Installation 00. This is pretty much the same. Hey, Joy, good morning. This is pretty much the same song that we listen to behind every single book that we read. Happy New Year! Yay! Great stuff. Really, really cool stuff. I'm excited about it, and, yeah. Go check out Ambient Wonders on YouTube. It's great for studying. It's great for, reading. It's great for ambiance at your party. It's Halo music, and if nobody's a Halo fan, they're not gonna know. They're just gonna be like, "Wow, this Gregorian choir you're playing it in your awesome house. Wow." Anyway, Ambient Wonders. Martin makes it. Anyway, also check out my friends like Lex Make Creations, Foam Forge, and obviously Martin. The episode wasn't even called Ship in a Bottle. Yeah, it was not called Ship in a Bottle. It was called, and I fucking just saw it, too. I can't remember the name of it, but it was about the ship. The Ship in a Bottle episode, actually, was the one where they were building the wooden ship, and Worf was trying to build the model ship. I think that was the Ship in a Bottle episode for, Ship in a Bottle is in Sherlock Holmes. That's possibly true as well. I don't remember what it was called, but anyway. Son of a bitch. Sidetracked already this morning. Just fuck lost. I got nothing. Kraken play tonight at 7, I think. I'll be around for that. Here in the Spartan space, watching it, doing a little bit of crafting, a little bit of cleaning, figuring out what my projects are for the upcoming future. I have some developing things that may change a lot of what we do around here and how we do it. More info to come. Booby trap. It seems right. That seems like the correct name. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you for that. Yeah, more to follow. More to follow. I don't have a lot to tell you. Like I said, it's just some developing things in the background that you know, you guys may or may not be excited to hear about sooner than later. It's got to be secretive. Hey Joy, is Jimmy ready to start the new book? We're about 15 minutes in. I gotta get started. There's something else. Was there anything else? Oh, my wife got her car back yesterday. Was it yesterday? No, we had her car back yesterday already. And yesterday we drove it some more, and it's great. So that's all good news. I'm happy about that. So we got 2 cars back in the house, and all in all, it's a great day. Always a great day. Thanks for being awesome with me again. Thank you, everyone. I can't do it without you. You guys support me in ways that you will never ever know, and I can never ever properly articulate for you. So thank you. Thank you. I'm gonna take this vitamin gummy and bitch about it for a second, and then we're gonna read this book. Oh, it's terrible. I was talking to my wife about Flintstones kids last night because I told her I think I'd rather go back to those, even though I'm not a kid. Something about chewy Flintstone flavored dudes that you could just crunch on. It reminds me of my childhood. Then she told me that when she was a kid, she ate so many of them that she had to go to the doctor and get her stomach pumped because they have iron, and she ate like a whole bottle of them, and I was like, oh my god, that's terrible. Orders were to destroy the and simulators with photon torpedoes to prevent it from luring any more victims. That's right. That's too bad because, man, that was a relic that they could have brought back to a museum and studied forever. And Captain Picard looked so youthful and excited about it. Who knows? And my vitamin D, all of it. Ugh. And the last one, the vitamin B, which I hate the most. You know, if they had said, John, take vitamin C, take lots of vitamin C, I'd be more than happy to go to Costco and get those giant quarter-sized flat discs of vitamin C and just eat them like candies. More than happy. But no. Nah. It's got to be these terrible brown horse pills. Suck. All right, let's get this show on the road. There you go. A couple of things. It says in 2560, after eliminating War Chief Escherum and sending the banished leadership into chaos, the Master Chief continues to fight on Zeta Halo. Accompanied by his new AI companion and a loyal pilot, Fernando Esparza, Spartan 117 searches for scattered Allied forces, a young combat medic tortured and imprisoned for months by the banished, and an enigmatic harbinger, who may hold the key to unlocking deeper mysteries within the ancient ring world. But every step towards answers is haunted by the sinister and elusive Blade Master, Jaeger Ardumni, who is hell-bent on vengeance. That's the back of the book. That's the synopsis. Let's see here. Okay. Sorry, I'm just getting us. There is a poem at the beginning, and an audio file. Um, it would appear to be an audio file about that Fernando um, posted. And then we'll go into chapter 1. So I'll read it. I'll read it for you. It's fine. Here we go. We'll start as always with the with Kevin's favorite spaceship. Shh, da, 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 shh. It's in orbit now. It's gone. No. All right. It says so the first page says the fort was held. Thanks, JG. And then there's a historian's note here. It says this story takes place in June 2560, immediately following the Master Chief's defeat on the Harbinger within the Silent Auditorium on the fractured ring world Zeta Halo. It's currently located in an unknown region of space. And then the poem goes, "This is the way the world ends." It says, "We are as one, you and I forged of the same steel, you soft around the edges, untested, me tempered and quenched, hardened by time, tempted with wings that could never fly. The world is a beautiful place, despite its sorrows and turns, and our cage is a temple made of fire, and in it we must burn. So strike and blow and light the forge blue. I leave all that is left to the crucible." Did she know I would wield the hammer? Of course she did. She is the steel from which we are born, the sword in hand to meet the impossible storm. The first slant of light now blackens my eyes. I am racing comets and learning to fly. What is an ending, really, but a journey set anew? But even so, I hope you'll miss me a little, won't you? That's the poem. Did it freeze? Did it drop out on you guys? Really? Bummer. Keep an eye on it and let me know. Audio file. It says 2 days of searching and no sign of the chief or the weapon. I don't know what to do or where to look. There is no one to call for help, and the banished are everywhere. I hate this place, Alitza. I hate it so much. I found him, did I tell you? I, Fernando Esparza, a simple engineer, found an honest-to-God Spartan, the Master Chief, out there, floating in space. After the banish ambushed Infinity, I thought I was the only human left alive. For 6 months, I hid in my Pelican. Well, you know the story. I did record an ungodly amount of audio files during that time, didn't I? But I don't think I've ever recorded one since. There hasn't been time. Finding the Master Chief was a blessing and a curse. After bringing the big guy in from the cold and waking him up, he hauled me right down to the surface of the Halo Ring. More on that later. And has been fighting ever since, trying to gain a foothold. And he managed the impossible, killing a bunch of high-level banished leaders and their war chief, Esheram. The stories about the Spartans, the hype, it's all true. But the ring isn't just full of technology that the enemy wants. It's also a prison to an ancient species called the Endless. And the banished released one of them, the Harbinger. The things I know are way above my pay grade, let me tell you. It's insane to think that things like halos exist. Imagine a great wheel made by an ancient advanced civilization, as round as our own planet, floating in space with living habitats all along its inner band. This is what we're fighting for. This weapon, and the things on it, and in it. Infinity and her fleet came to the Halo to apprehend Cortana, the leader of the created, and get this former AI partner to the Master Chief himself. After the banished ambushed us, she blew a nice-sized hole in the ring and sent it through slip space to some unknown part of the galaxy, taking us all along for the ride and leaving us stranded, unable to call for help. She was destroyed in the explosion, but if you ask me, she deserved far worse, and I, for one, am glad she is dead. I can only imagine how scary it must have been to hear her galaxy-wide ultimatum, to witness her guardians appearing above our homeworlds, and to be at the mercy of those in power choosing to make a stand rather than succumb to the ideas of peace, to her ideas of peace. I know that you, our daughter, and everyone else are long gone, but I can't stop hoping that somehow, through a miracle, you survived Cortana's planet killers. I don't know why I even make these entries. You won't get to read them anyway. I guess it's as pointless as replying or replaying some other man's hollow messages. And yet, it reminds me of both of you, of the family I stupidly left behind. I'm afraid, Elitza, but I won't give up. I'll keep surviving, and I'll return home to see for myself whatever it takes. Chapter 1, Silent Auditorium, June 3, 2560. Doesn't want to see me like this. Silent Auditorium. Here we go. We're gonna start again. Sorry, I had a message about it. Am I live right now? Just checking. All right. Well, here we go. Chapter 1, Silent Auditorium, June 3rd, 2560. The light from the portal filled his heads-up display, white and blinding. In an instant, the neural interface linking the Master Chief, Spartan John 117, to his armor system went dark. No latent or real-time data populated across his HUD or its interior screen. He was blind in more ways than one, left with only the adrenaline of recent battles and the sound of his pulse still thundering in his ears. Against the warning of the weapon, the young artificial intelligence currently residing in the crystalline layer between his Mjolnir armor and his inner padding, and with the silent auditorium collapsing around them, there hadn't been time to question the portal's sudden disappearance or its origins, so he made the call and just leapt into the unknown, only to be spit out in midair seconds later. Immediately, his display cleared, revealing a dusk-colored sky before his screen filled with the data that told him what he already knew. He was falling backwards and fast. No time to react. He crashed, shoulders first, onto a mountainside, his armor taking the brunt as he slid down the jagged cliff top, all 450 kilos of him, busting through granite and schist, and finally coming to a rolling stop on the flat edge. That's schist. Schist. He lay there for a half of a second, numb to the pain. Muscle fatigue and hunger accumulated over days of intense combat. With a grunt, he pushed to his feet. Let's not do that again. I did try to tell you it was a bad idea. John ignored the weapon's cheerful I told you so, and stepped toward the cliff edge to get his bearings, gazing across the vast span of Zeta Halo's inner surface, where a gaping hole had been blown into the ancient ring structure 6 months earlier. The fiery glow from the nearest star illuminated the Halo's distant debris field, a patchwork of islands, broken superstructures, and remnants of spent battles, all caught in place by the ring's artificial gravity. The portal had taken them from the silent auditorium deep within the interior of one of those islands and cast them out here moments later, clear across the ring. His calm suddenly crackled to life. Chief, your beacon just appeared out of nowhere. Oh, I thought I'd lost you. Where did you go? Echo 216, the weapon responded, clearly surprised. She wasn't the only one. The fact that the Pelican pilot had managed to find them so far from where he'd initially dropped them off only a few hours earlier seemed almost impossible. Stay put, Echo 216 said. I'm coming to you. Dust blew across the barren rocks, drawing John's gaze away from the cliff's edge to what lay around him. Where are we? As he turned, he saw that he stood in the shadow of the 5-meter-tall totem ring, one of the 7 stone rings, lodged in a continuous line with the barren rocks, ancient and weathered, a few broken. Their totems were carved with strange symbols and iconography, and contained data relating to Zeta Halo's distant past. The weapon had decoded several of these records during their short time on the ring and found the totems unnerving. Couldn't say he blamed her. Chief, I think the better question is, when are we? The weapon replied. I don't know how, but we've been gone for days. 3 days to be precise. In his decades of service to the United Space Command, fighting the Covenant, the Flood, and the Banished, Cortana created and countless other threats, he'd seen his share of uncanny alien technology, but the revelation still caught him off guard. This ring, he noted quietly, is different than the others. Zeta Halo was part of the Neoteric Array, 7 superweapons created over 100,000 years ago by an ancient technologically advanced species known as the Forerunners, to combat the Flood. The parasitic hive mind had been sweeping through system after system, infecting world upon world. The Halo Array fired in concert. It was designed to eliminate the Flood's food sources, namely all thinking life in the galaxy. Nothing survived. To counter the horrific effects of their weapons, and to later reseed life back into the galaxy after the Flood died out from starvation, the Forerunners had designed the Halos and their inner bands to house all manners of life, preserving flora, fauna, specimens from across the stars in a multitude of habitats and genetic repositories. The rings contained vast archives of history, information, and technology, and some, like this one, held secrets even the Forerunners feared. John sensed a soft nudge through his neural link and lifted his hand in response. The weapon instantly projected her blue holographic form onto his open palm. 30 centimeters tall, she was clad in a translucent UNSC bridge cadet uniform. Lines of code ran vertically through her entire body, growing, luminous, or dim depending on the mood, which for the most part was sunny and optimistic. Her face was impish, and she'd often tucked one side of her cropped dark hair behind her ear. The Banished and the Harbinger were looking for something that was never found, she said, studying the archaic tomes. Why would the Forerunners hide something and throw away the key? Doesn't that scare you? No, you? The weapon considered this question. Of course not. A familiar whir filled the air as his comms began to buzz again. Is anyone going to ask me what I think? John turned as the Pelican rose from the depths below the ledge to hover directly in front of him. The dropship's windshield was cracked in many places, its armor plating charred and dented, and its chin gun completely inoperable. But the venerable D-77 Tango Charlie was still proving its worth. I guess not. Get inside, big guy, Echo 216 said, executing a 180 to put the Pelican's back hatch a few meters away from the cliff's ledge. Its door was already open. As the weapon withdrew into his armor, John ran forward, leaping off the edge and into the troop bay, the metallic clang of his armored boots echoing through the space as his momentum carried him down towards the cockpit. With autopilot engaged, Echo 216 unclipped his harness and hurried out of the cockpit, arms stretched to embrace the Spartan. Chief, Chief! The hug was unexpected, but it told John how traumatized the man must have been in their absence. The pilot had been existing in a constant state of fear for far too long. First, stuck alone in the ring's orbit for 6 months, the dead floating all around him while evading enemy patrols, then thrust into the ongoing battle on the surface, assisting John as he fought to regain control over the ring. A fight not without its consequences. That, along with the last 72 hours, had taken their toll. Though now the sudden appearance of Echo 216 made a bit more sense. The pilot hadn't found them quickly at all. He'd been out searching for days, finally happening upon their signal. Sorry, I'm really happy to see you. Really happy. Echo 216 stepped back, gazing up at John's face plate. a relieved smile breaking through his dark beard before grabbing an MA-40 assault rifle, leaning against one of the troop seats. So what do we do now? The Master Chief took the offered rifle and attached it to his back, feeling the magnetic plate grab hold. We finished the fight. The pilot laughed, punched the air, and then saluted. His animated behavior, bordering on maniacal. It didn't take a therapist to see the trauma lurking behind his excitement. Yes, sir. He headed back to the cockpit. The Banished still controlled the rest of the ring. Wait. The weapon appeared on John's palm. I know this is weird, she said, given all that's happened, but... What is it? The pilot turned, his hand resting on the back of the flight seat. We still don't know your name. We can't keep calling you Echo 216. No, you can't. He gave a genuine smile. Esparza. Fernando Esparza. It's nice to meet you, Esparza. Fernando Esparza. Good work, soldier, John said, feeling somewhat guilty he'd never asked the question himself, given that his reliance on the pilot had put the man in danger so many times. But he knew why he hadn't. The war they'd been fighting, like all the others, endless battles over the years, all the names and the faces and Marines and civilians and soldiers and friends. He'd gotten used to keeping people at arm's length. It was better this way. And what about you? Esparza asked the weapon. What about me? What do I call you? She turned away from Esparza, uncertain in her expression. Any ideas? John asked. Well, she put her hands behind her back and she considered it. Then do you think it would be okay? He nodded. The naming of oneself was a privilege granted to all the smart AIs. This one, however, had been the exception. The weapon had been created for a single purpose, a critical mission. She wasn't meant to outlast, but now that she'd been hanging around for a while, the choice was all hers. You're sure? She asked. You get to choose your name. Then I think, she pivoted back to Esparza, smiling, I think I might have the perfect one. Esparza slid into the pilot's chair and locked into place. All right, here we go. John took up position behind the seat. With a glance over his shoulder, Esparza laughed and then pushed the throttle. Get ready. Hugging Zeta Halo's inner curve, the Pelican flew at subliminal speed back towards the fracture. John linked his HUD to the dropship radar, keeping a close eye on its long and short-range sensors. Most Banished forces seemed to be concentrated in the area of the ring's debris field, where the heaviest fighting had taken place over the last 6 months, but scouting parties and patrols could be anywhere on the surface, and without an operational chin gun, they'd do well to steer clear of Banshee patrols or anti-air guns. What's it been like the last 3 days? John asked, though he had a feeling he already knew. He killed the Banished leader, Escharum, before heading to the Silent Auditorium and facing the Harbinger. The blowback should have been significant. It's not good, Chief. After you took out Escharum, the Banished went berserk. Well, more berserk than usual. They've been broadcasting mass prisoner executions over their comm towers, making a real spectacle. They've taken a few of the fobs you guys liberated. Some of the Banished are even turning against the human factions within their own ranks. Chief, the weapon's concerned gaze told him she was aware of the spike in his limbic system. He'd expected retribution for the Banished leader's death, but he hadn't expected to be MIA for 3 days, while UNSC forces sat in the crosshairs paying the prices. Just as they had to do when he'd been adrift in space, unable to join the fight. I'm supposed to take the brunt. I can handle it. There are too many out there that can't. It's not your fault, she replied carefully. I know, but knowing didn't make the situation any less frustrating. There's no leadership, Esparza continued, in an obvious attempt to redirect the conversation. Word is that all will be worked out tomorrow. What happens tomorrow? The weapon asked. The last day of Escherum's funeral. Stay frosty, my friends. We're approaching the break. This is Banished territory. 7 kilometers out, islands began to take shape within Zeta Halo's massive fracture, many of which had retained their topography in the cataclysm. Rocky terrain, high-altitude forests and meadows, a few small lakes and scattered clusters of hardy vegetation still flourishing beneath a manufactured atmosphere. And gravity while other small fragments were nothing more than chunks of exposed pillar and alloy substructure, stripped bare in the explosion, revealing the complex machinery and vast underworld that existed below the ring. Even from the distance, signs of occupation dotted the debris field. The faint glow of fires and long threads of smoke rising into the atmosphere marked clear indications of life, any one of which might be human, might be the members of his team. John had no doubt that Blue Team, Fred 104, Kelly 087, and Linda 058 were out there somewhere, just as he felt certain that Dr. Halsey's Spartan commander Sarah Palmer and Infinity's captain Thomas Lasky had survived and were even now making inroads to take back Zeta Halo from the Banished. Hundreds of Spartans had been aboard the flagship when she entered the ring's orbit, but with the Banished routinely jamming UNSC comms, it was difficult to know just how many had survived the initial ambush and how many were still alive after 6 months of relentless fighting here on the surface. As much as he wanted to search for Blue Team and the others, he had to take advantage of the power vacuum created by Escherum's death before losing the opportunity altogether. Without UNSC leadership and a clear centralized command, Rubicon Protocol is still in effect, the weapon said, in line with his thoughts. What is Rubicon Protocol? Esparza asked. It's permission to act, she answered, to do what needs to be done, to keep Zeta Halo out of enemy hands and prevent new leaders from rising out of the ashes. Whatever it takes, John said. Whatever it takes, Esparza echoed. I'm afraid to ask what that entails. Never mind, I don't want to know. It means we're going to fan the flames, sow chaos and division, John said. Then we use the distraction to sever Banished comms and jamming towers and restore UNSC comsats so survivors can start communicating and regrouping. Chaos sounds fun, the weapon responded, grinning at Esparza. Doesn't it? Oh, so much fun. Just drowning in fun, he muttered, rolling his eyes. The dropship continued its descent towards the edge of the fracture, and the familiar alpine landscape that made up the broken fragments of the ring. The unknown system's nearby sun had set, leaving behind an evening sky with thin clouds and the maw of space lurking behind. So now that you know my name, Esparza glanced over at the weapon. You plan on sharing this perfect name of yours? John lifted the weapon higher as she linked her hands behind her back and cocked her head, a slow, mischievous grin building on her perfect face. It's Steve, Esparza blinked. Steve? He echoed after a dumbstruck moment, his brow furrowed as he glanced between them. Are you serious? When she didn't respond, he said, Of all the random names? Chief, come on, are you hearing this? John shrugged. I like it. What's wrong with Steve? Steve blinked innocently. It doesn't... Esparza stammered incredulously until the weapon burst out with laughter. You should see your face. Esparza's shocked expression gradually shifted, becoming a grudging smile. Ha ha, you got me. Very funny. Oh, trust me, it was. She turned her head and caught John's attention, the wide grin on her face sweeping through his chest like a solid punch in the solar plexus. She looked just like her. His own words to Dr. Catherine Halsey were ingrained in his memory. In her lab on Infinity, the doctor had shown him the weapon. If you say so, I see something else, something more innocent, from a simpler time, Halsey had said. Does she know me? No, she is a blank slate, no memories, no history. Her core is nearly complete. Once it's ready, it'll be up to the two of you. The weapon will lock her down. You will retrieve Cortana and bring her back here for execution. For deletion. We're at war, Master Chief. If you do not think you can do this, now is the time to step down. I'm sure Spartan Lock is available. That won't be necessary. Good, tomorrow we'll test us all. Dr. Halsey had been right, as usual. They'd been tested and failed. He stowed the memory and turned his attention back to the weapon. Did you decide? I did. Her shoulders went straight, and she said with confidence, I'm UNSC AI serial number CTN 0453 Tech 0. Name designation, Joy Use. It's not as good as Steve, but I like it, Esparza said, giving her a wink. John knew that there was a chance she might have called herself Cortana, and while he would have supported her decision, he couldn't deny the strong feeling of relief that swept through him. Holding on to a name that carried so much history and unresolved grief would have been very difficult. The clearing of Joyce's throat drew his gaze to her once more. She was waiting, wanting to know what he thought. John dipped his head. I like it too, it suits you. She smiled. Thanks. Joyce Esparza muttered it all over. Never really heard a name like that before. What does it mean? Well, among other things, it means good-natured, with a really amazing personality. Describes me pretty well, don't you think? I think you're right, then. It is perfect. Precisely, she said, pleased. You know, my wife loved unique names, too. When we chose our daughter's name... Eiley? Oh man, it took forever. Nothing felt right. That's Iahlee for anyone following. So how did you choose? Well, right up until the day she was born, we couldn't decide. And then she was there, in the world, this perfect little being. And all of it just clicked. I guess it took meeting, face to face, to really know. Hold on, he said, hand banking the pelican around jagged pillars, jutting from the side of a barren mountain peak. As they talked names, John's mind took him back to the first time he'd met Joyce's predecessor. Her matrix had poured into the neural interface implanted in the back of his head with a sharp, icy stab. The initial feeling had been unexpected, as was hearing another internal voice besides his own, coexisting and speaking inside of his mind. Not a lot of room in here. Hello, Master Chief. Hello, Cortana. Chapter 2. Pelican, Echo 216, June 3, 2560. At the edge of the fracture, Esparza eased back on the thrusters and settled the Pelican into a level descent along the break. They were barely a speck compared to the enormity of Zeta Halo, its depth and staggering 47 kilometers. And while the ring was unquestionably impressive on the outside, its inner workings now exposed were no less astonishing. A dark labyrinth, a world within a world of alloy structures, conduits, support girders, and pillars. They are seeing only a slice into its massive interior, but John knew that far deeper within that darkness lay vast complexes, archives, research facilities, repair centers, generators, manufacturing sites, hangar bays, passageways, and some as wide as humanity's largest super cities. Signs of the ring repair was in full progress. Swarms of constructor and aggressor sentinels, forerunner machines designed for maintenance, repair, and security were methodically healing the gaping wounds, rebuilding the structure extensively with its outer plating and intricate inner systems, as others mended the colossal framework, which would eventually support the weight of the new artificial topographies. Joyce, her form now generated atop the Pelican's forward console via the cockpit's hollow emitter, seemed mesmerized by the awesome sight. Don't worry about them, Esparza said, mistaking her reaction for concern. They don't seem to notice or mind who passes by. Oh, trust me, they notice, she replied, but lucky for us, they won't attack unless provoked or directed by the ring's monitor or sub-monitor. With Zeta Halo's monitors currently gone, they're probably working on autopilot. Reaching the final few kilometers of the ring depth, the Pelican began to a slow pathway from a jagged edge of the open break, the small craft weaving beneath massive islands and floating chunks of twisted metal and the occasional debris of banished and human vessels. Where are we headed? John asked. You'll see, we're almost there. I found this place a couple of days ago. Banished salvagers had already scoured the area, taking the big guns and ammo. They don't come this way much, since it's far from the main island. I tried hiding the Pelican back there. He jabbed a thumb over his shoulder. Inside the ring, but there's nothing. No food, no water, and no supplies. Another debris strewn patch came into view. Loose rocks, boulders, trees, and a shattered topography shared space with clumps of twisted and burned out wreckage. banished in UNSC starfighters, a few drop pods, a warthog, a smaller equipment like cannons, cargo bins, land vehicles, along with the grim remains of their operators. Somberness settled in the cockpit. John's jaw clenched tightly. He couldn't help but think he'd failed his fellow soldiers. As the enemy ambush had torn through the UNSC fleet, the banished War Master Atriox had boarded Infinity, intent on capturing the weapon. John had fought Atriox himself to prevent the Geralhanai's ingress, and was soundly defeated, tossed out of the alien ship, unconscious and unable to assist. Esparza navigated through the haunting field, eventually making it a clear approach to a jagged dark gray mass. John recognized the material instantly. It was titanium air plating. They were headed straight towards what remained of a UNSC frigate, FFG 611, imprinted on its hull. One of the many in Infinity's flagship support fleet. Telltale plasma burns had curled the metal edges, effectively melting the powerful vessel into two. Its other half nowhere to be seen. "Give me a minute," Esparza said. "It's a tight squeeze." This particular frigate possessed only one bay large enough for storage compartments and a single Pelican dropship. Its experienced pilots could slot a bird into a fully stocked single bay with ease, but Esparza was an engineer by training and far from experience. John winced as the wings scraped the frigate's hull. Joyeuse stared slack-jawed at the pilot as a shower of sparks floated across the dropship windshield. "You've been flying this thing for the past 6 months?" "Most of that was drifting in space, doing the bare minimum to stay off the radar. There was hardly any flying at all. That guy showed up," he said, gesturing to the Spartan. "Oh, until that guy showed up," he said, gesturing to the Spartan. Joyeuse snorted. "At this rate, I could handwrite an entire manual on how not to land a Pelican." Yeah, don't rub it in." The skin above Esparza's beard turned pink. "Doing my best here. It's trickier than usual because of that bent bulkhead." He cast a nod toward the holographic display on the screen, showing a 4-meter bulge in the hangar's starboard wall. The Pelican wobbled starboard to port 3 times before its landing gear finally connected with the hangar floor. The engines powered down, and the whine of machinery faded into silence. Esparza unclipped his harness and exited his seat. And now for the best part. He headed into the troop bay and retrieved an atmospheric suit from the locker. After the engineer had suited up and put his helmet on, the chief's comms lit up. "Every frigate like this has a small generator with enough power to seal the hangar bay," Esparza told him through the speakers, and he disengaged the airlock and opened the troop bay door. Impressed by his resourcefulness, John held out his hand to allow Joyeuse to step from the holodeck onto his palm, then followed Esparza into the frigate's hangar bay. Besides a few leaks, it had a seal. The hull and oxygen tanks are in good shape. Crates of provisions had been haphazardly clamped and stacked against one wall. Esparza weaved between the crates and 2 storage containers to get to the housing containing a mid-sized generator. "You're not worried about the energy signature?" Joyeuse asked. "These frigates have a very low sensory emission, the generator even less. What little is emitted gets lost, and all the other junk's still powered on in the field. And before you asked, I checked. No survivors. But what is here is food, water, and supplies." Once the generator powered on and the energy shield encapsulated the entirety of the hangar bay, sealing them off for the vacuum of space. "There's a handful of small portable lights by my cot there, but otherwise I keep the bay lights off," Esparza said, "just in case." "Shields operating at 96%, oxygen levels increasing," Joyeuse noted, sounding impressed. "I mean, I might not be a great pilot, but I'd like to think I'm a decent engineer." "More than decent. Good work." John strode to the hangar bay's control suite. The console was equipped with an AI port. He reached around to the base of his helmet. As he did, he felt Joyeuse direct her matrix from the layer in his suit into the crystal data chip designed to house her matrix. A small click sounded, and the sensation of pressure releasing swept through his brain as he removed the chip and inserted it into the AI ports. Joyeuse shimmered into being over a holopad on the console. Is this an invitation to dig into the ship files? Because I'd love a good research session. The ship's AI will have scrubbed most of the sensitive data per protocol, John said, but there should be enough ancillary data on the current events to get you up to speed. She's an AI, Esparza said. Isn't she already up to speed? Not quite, Joyous answered. My insight into human history, the nuances of your culture, the complexity of military life, all is lacking. A hint of uncertainty crossed her features. I understand mission parameters and tactics, and I've increased that understanding through the Master Chief's database of the UNSC forward operating bases that we liberated, but I'm missing the context that comes with the history and experience. Since the Chief found me, I've only had a few days to get whatever data I could about humanity and the Banish. When Joy was deployed, she was only given relevant data necessary for mission success, John explained. Joy, she blinked, seeming to ponder the nickname as John tilted his head, silently asking if she approved. I like it. So you're a fresh out-of-the-box Cortana model, Esparza asked. No offense. None taken. There was no disputing this fact. Both Joyous and Cortana had been made from one of the cloned brains of their creator, Dr. Catherine Halsey. Their replicated neural pathways simulated electrical impulses and signals. Their perception, reasoning, and emotional response models were all based on an identical template. Upon activation, each had emerged with the same appearance, voice, and thought patterns. The only thing that separated them was input and life experience, none of her history or memories. Not, Joy was slow to answer, really. I'm essentially a clean slate, unless we're talking forerunners. I've already acquired and disseminated a vast amount of data contained within the section of this ring, though I was limited by the security measures put in place when the ring was fractured. This was the first John was hearing about it. What kind of measures? The flow of certain data around Sele Halo was suspended and partitioned into sectors, which is why I'm unable to build a clear picture of what's happening in other parts of the ring. As John absorbed that bit of information, Esparza resumed his own line of questioning. So you're not exactly an exact copy. Joyous paused, cocking her head in a thoughtful manner. Well, when you put it that way, I am and I am not. Esparza laughed and headed to a stack of storage containers. Well, while you feed on information, I'm going to fill my belly with, he dug through the bin, taco pizza, or moa meatballs, or gravy over rice, maybe. While he rummaged through the available food supply, Joy seemed to hesitate on the console before saying, Chief, you went from 6 months of induced stasis to several days of consistent combat. You could use a thorough maintenance check on all your systems. I'll take care of that. But I said I'll take care of it. Discouraged, she fell silent. In a few seconds, that passed. The confusion, concern, and embarrassment flitting across her features made John regret his blunt tone. Okay, she finally replied, if you say so. With that, she disappeared. Meals in tow, Esparza headed to a small, cleared-out section of the bay where there were 2 large storage containers touched to make a corner. Here, he'd gathered essential supplies and had set up a cot and requisitioned a small ammo crate to use as a table. Oxygen levels are good now, he said, removing his helmet and setting in on the cot beside him as he sat. From the makeshift table, he grabbed a palm-sized portable light and activated it with a wave of his hand. The small chem light flickered into dimness, casting large shadows across the hangar bay. Welcome to the UNSC Casa del Esparza. It isn't much, but it's kept me alive the past 3 days. It'll do. You've done well. John made for one of the storage bins pushed against a large container. He sat, released the atmospheric seal on his headgear, and then removed his helmet, placing it next to him and drawing in a deep, unfiltered breath of air. The oily smell of engine components and ozone mixed with the familiar metallic tang of titanium plating. Might be putting off some, but he'd always found the scent comforting. Might be off-putting to some. Sorry, putting off. Jesus. Esparza pulled a rucksack laden with supplies over his feet and rummaged through it. Here you go, Chief. A water bottle and a standard-issue energy bar sailed through the air. What am I thinking? With a short laugh, he tossed 3 more bars John's way. Nothing is standard about you. John caught the extra packs. Thanks. He was used to feeling hungry and never minded it. It reminded him that he was still more human than machine, But Joy was right. He was sorely in need of an ad hoc diagnostic workup. The significant nutrient deficit caused by 6 months of stasis, followed by nearly nonstop fighting, had sapped his energy. The packs and the couple of MREs would do him a world of good. As Esparza prepped the MREs, pulling the strips of the air-activated ration heaters, John noticed the engineer's hand shook slightly. Taco pizza or moa meatballs, he asked over his shoulder. Doesn't matter. Esparza put the finishing touches on the meatballs and handed them off to John before returning to check the temperature of the pizza. The first bite of processed meatball held just a hint of meat flavoring, which almost immediately gave way to bland, cakey wad of calorie-dense nutrients. But it was warm, served its purpose, and was a hell of a lot better than eating bark. As he polished off his meal, John studied Esparza. In the in the quiet of his task, the bearded man's profile became more haggard. The facade he usually wore was slipping. The MRE, however, seemed to steady him somewhat, and after eating, he pulled a small case from beneath the cot and opened it. John saw long cylinders clipped into one side of the case and dispensement capsules on the other, most likely Polysu or some other painkiller. Esparza uncapped one of the capsules and stuck it against his thigh. After a few seconds, he let out a slow breath. Then he caught John's eye, causing him to quickly look away, ashamed and exposed. A stark contrast to his usual upbeat personality. His shoulders slumped with a weariness that seemed bone deep. There was only so long one could sustain the charade. Before John's final confrontation with Escharum, the banished leader had used the Sangheili Blade Master Jagar Dumnai, a Spartan killer and Escherum's right hand, to kidnap Esparza in an effort to lure the Master Chief into his stronghold, the appropriately named House of Reckoning. Esparza had been in Jaga's captivity for long, only a few hours, but it was enough time to experience an accelerated form of torture in that bastard's interrogation device. John had seen exactly what that device had done to Spartan Griffin. Brutally effective, while also inflicting maximum psychological damage. Esparza surviving in it for as long as he had was a damn miracle. Once rescued, pure adrenaline had apparently carried Esparza through the aftermath, but in the last 3 days, alone and hiding amidst constant danger and fear, he clearly had been suffering the full effects of post-traumatic stress. The hyper moods, the tremors in his hands, the haunted look in his eyes, they were telltale signs that John had seen far too many times before. John opened one of the cargo pouches on his waist and withdrew a round hollow disc. Here, you dropped this earlier. He passed the device to Esparza. Esparza accepted the smooth circular emitter, pulling it close, cradling it as a host of emotions, longing, heartbreak, regret, all crossed his weary face. I can't believe you found it. His softly spoken words turned to a miserable laugh. You know this isn't even mine. How pathetic is that, all this time, listening to a wife, a child, a family that isn't my own. But they remind you of yours, John replied, understanding. John had discovered the disc on the floor in the House of Reckoning, and he breached the fourth level just below where Jaga had been holding Esparza hostage. It's retribution, I know, Esparza said quietly. Retribution? All of it. Everything that's happened. It's no less than I deserve, Chief. He laid back on the bed and closed his eyes as the drugs took effect. No less than I deserve. When the Banish had ambushed Infinity, Esparza had panicked. In the chaos, he stole a Pelican, Echo 216, from one of the ship's hangar bays and fled for his life. He was an engineer, a volunteer. At that, not a soldier. He probably never came face to face with a jackal or a brute before now, but he could have saved lives, could have filled the Pelican with troops in the troop bay, or with evacuating personnel. Instead, he fled with an empty ship. There was a time in his life when John would have judged Esparza harshly, but the longer he waged a war, the more he'd come to accept that everyone reacted differently. Their actions, motivations guided most of them by self-preservation, fear, and panic. Traits that he, as a Spartan, simply no longer possessed. at least not in any quantifiable measure. Before this is over, promise me you'll figure out which one of us is the machine. Cortana had said that to him once, and he was becoming more convinced that there was no good answer, and he'd carved out a place for himself somewhere in the in-between. Guilt and war, strengths and weaknesses, the good, the bad, they all went hand in hand, and they all had their fair share of shit to shine. At least Esparza had admitted the wrong he'd done, and John had a feeling the man would spend the rest of his life trying to make up for it, just as Cortana had given hers to make up for... No, not now. He was too tired and his belly was finally full, with field rations, sure, but it was something tangible and warm compared to the nutrients supplied by his armor. With a deep exhale, he leaned back against the hull and shut his eyes for a few hours of sleep, and then back to boots on the ground. Chapter 3, UNSC Casa della Esparza, January 3rd, 2560. Absorbing what was left of the frigate's limited information. Took mere seconds. Spartan 117 was correct in his assessment, as encrypted and eyes-only data before enacting its own deletion, protocol sacrificing itself. Not much to sift through, really. But there were personnel files left behind and historical data found in the most unremarkable places. Learning modules, personal data pads, entertainment, even vending machines, forming a patchwork of rich history over humanity. A species given to great acts of depravity and horror, and the most astonishing acts of courage and loyalty. The dichotomy they posed was puzzling and utterly fascinating. That humanity had lasted this long was a testament to their inexhaustible tenacity, and what could only be described as extraordinary luck. Out of all the information, though, it had been the personal journals, the first-hand accounts across the spectrum of routine daily life, the dramatic experience to mundane inner revelations, these things captivated Joy's attention the most, and from that an idea formed. Why not do the same? Liking the idea, she reconfigured her event log framework to include a personal journal template, a sort of real-time accounting and review of her very own and very new life. Never mind that she was not supposed to be here, she intended to carve her own path. Satisfied with her efforts, Joy materialized above the console's hull port, sitting cross-legged to watch the Spartan sleep. When she was unplugged, the Master Chief's vitals and body responses to stimuli, things that allowed her to read his physical state and mood, were unavailable. And even when she was fully interfacing between his brain and his armor, improving his reaction times and aiding him in the field, it wasn't like she could read his mind. The personnel files and reports within his Milner armor data set had been set to private. There was no information to tell her what kind of human he really was, and more importantly, what had made the predecessor care so deeply for him. He was determined, obviously, persistent to a remarkable degree. He cared about his fellow soldiers, had risked his life countless times. In the thousands of faces and files she'd accessed through the frigate, in Spartan 117's database, and via the UNSC technology on Zeta Halo's surface, no one compared to him. He simply stood out. It wasn't that he was the tallest, the smartest, or the strongest, but he was the best at utilizing every ounce of his artificial asset and natural abilities. It set him apart and made him the ultimate Spartan. He was gruff, untalkative, and much older than her, a seasoned veteran to her very capable and impressive infancy. They were complete opposites, and yet she liked him. But could she trust him? He had attempted to delete her, and while she didn't think he'd try that again, she did wonder whether, if ordered by his superiors to do so, would he? Once the UNSC learned of her continued existence, her safety might be thrown into question. Where she once had no opinion on the matter of her deletion and was happy to follow the orders that would lead to her demise, now, apparently, she was full of wants and opinions. She wanted to exist, to experience, to expand, to learn, to feel. The thrill of accompanying the Master Chief across Zeta Halo's fragments and aiding in destroying banished assets was exhilarating, and she wanted more of it. More adventure, more time to crack his hard shell, more time to fight and experience the satisfaction that came from knowing she had helped to make a difference. It just felt right. Like some ingrained part of her core processing had been designed for this exact purpose. It was the same way that infiltrating systems and gathering information was as natural to her as breathing was to humans. Speaking of information, during the 6 months she had waited for retrieval, even while limited by partition security measures, a tremendous amount of data had been at her fingertips. All things Forerunner, all things Zeta Halo, and some things within the ring, much to her surprise, that even she couldn't crack. Not that she was giving up. Those challenges were still very much on her to-do list. Her original mission had been a success. She trapped the rogue AI, as Cortana in the Silent Auditorium, known as Cortana in the Silent Auditorium. But Joy had not been aware of the scope playing out behind the scenes. Atriox making his move, Cortana coming to her senses and learning that the weapon of Dr. Halsey's design had been working to trap her. From what Joyous had gleaned about Cortana over the last few days, being replaced was the very thing that the rogue AI had come to fear. Something she had apparently been able to make peace with while trapped in the Silent Auditorium and facing her end. The truth was, they had both been trapped, as Cortana had certainly made use of that. Like the more experienced older sister she was, in a blinding set of split-second decisions, Cortana had infiltrated Joy's matrix, laying down a simple yet elegant deletion override, with a little bit of extra thrown in that didn't begin to reveal itself until Joy met the Master Chief, and together they began learning the truth of what had actually happened, saved by her predecessor. As she'd done so many times since that revelation, Joyous looked inward, diving into the deletion override insertion path, following the blown code to its destination, where the remnants had since formed into a long string of luminous data packets. No matter how hard she tried to gain entry into these files, she failed. It was as if she were working against a mirror of herself that ultimately ended in a stalemate every time. All that was currently accessible were the whispers Cortana had left behind, clinging to the enigmatic packets, snippets of life now lost, soft words and melodies randomly echoing. And occasionally, like the children Joy had just read about in the frigate's archives, holding hands and skipping around in circles, Cortana would hum and whisper and sing-song rhymes, sometimes barely audible. Other times, it was all Joy could hear. Charlemagne settles down for sleep, still fully clad in armor. Beside him rests his sword Joyous, and no one can disarm her. Cortana had packed quite a punch in all that small rhyme, and Joy had understood it for what it was worth. She'd been presented with the opportunity to be part of something, a legacy started by Catherine Halsey, which began with the AI. Kalmaya advanced to staggering degrees with Cortana and now continued through Joyous, if she wanted it. Now that her deletion protocol had been scuttled, Joy wasn't bound by anything. She could have picked up the mantle and tossed down by her predecessor, and could have used it to choose her own paths, other names, other partners. But the time spent with the Master Chief, her path had been and still was clear. She knew exactly who she was and what she wanted. She was Joyous. She'd heard her sister's echoes and comprehended the things revealed to her in the final moments, and she understood the assignment. Rise joyous and bright, a force like the sun, and stay by his side till his fight is done. The chief twitched suddenly, caught up in some fitful dream. Joy studied his face. It was a strong face, no surprise there, his features nicely balanced, but tired and gruff, and way too serious. As if on cue, he frowned deeply in his sleep, and she threw a hand over her mouth to stop from laughing out loud. Did he dream of home, she wondered, of family, of Cortana? From all the data Joy had extracted thus far, there was no denying that Cortana and the Master Chief had been legends together. Their exploits passed around barracks and battlefields alike. They'd fought side by side, an unstoppable duo in a war against the Covenant, their names emblazoned in the annals of military history. Their partnership had been more than just a tactical alliance. It had been a bond forged in the heart of battle, tempered by the trials they faced together. They fought tirelessly to overcome the worst threats to humanity. And then came the degradation, the betrayal. The day Cortana turned against humanity must have shattered the Chief's faith. Suffering the effects of rampancy, a terminal flaw caused by smart AI's limited neural matrix being unable, after 7 years of service, to contain the near-constant accumulation of knowledge. Cortana had found the answer to her growing madness within the mysterious quantum realm known as the Domain. Where her brilliance was further twisted by the runaway growth of a now limitless matrix. Millions lost their lives as she spiraled. The aftermath of her forced peace had charred entire worlds and left grieving families scattered across the systems. Joy and the Chief had learned just days ago that in the end, Cortana had awakened to the horror of what she had wrought. Her sacrifice to destroy herself and inflict immense damage upon Zeta Halo had given humanity a chance. The barest sliver of hope. The barest sliver of hope in the fight against the Banished. And she had saved Joy so that Joy in turn might save him. But was that enough for someone who had caused so much suffering? Had her sacrifice outweighed her crimes? And would Joy repeat Cortana's actions? When her time came to face the end, would she burn and rage against her fate without any care for the consequences, starting the cycle anew? Will I do what she did? She had stammered upon discovering that she was in fact a copy of Cortana. Become what she became? Am I already that? My mission was to ensure that that doesn't happen, the Master Chief had assured her. It still is. He said he wanted to trust her, but Joy couldn't help but wonder if he ever would, or if he resented her for the part of her that she played. Created to destroy the predecessor, the partner, she mused softly. Because trapping Cortana had, in a roundabout way, led to her destruction. Does he blame me? Does he see her when he looks at me? Am I a constant reminder of betrayal, she wondered, or a chance at redemption? John opened his eyes, meeting Joy's intense gaze as she sat cross-legged over the holopad, her words ringing in his ears. A flash of surprise lit her expression as she realized he was conscious and had heard all of the questions. Time seemed to stand still, if not for deep, drug-induced breathing coming from Fernando Esparza. Joy cocked her head and shrugged defiantly, as if daring him to go ahead and answer the questions. Sometimes he answered quietly, and yes. The moment stretched before she nodded, accepting his answer, then regarding him with more thoughtful expression. She's gone, Chief. She's really gone. You were partners and friends, and you haven't really had a chance to grieve. He hadn't, and he didn't want to. He hadn't grieved after she'd sacrificed herself to defeat the Didact, saving Earth from the burning wrath of the vengeful Forerunner. He hadn't grieved after leading Blue Team on a mission after mission, without a moment of respite in the years that followed, until Cortana appeared to him in a vision, the faintest hope of finding her, of bringing her home, leading him to go AWOL. And he hadn't grieved in the time she'd imposed her imperial rule over the galaxy, culminating in the mission to dethrone her at Zeta Halo, his mission. And then, within the silent auditorium, he had learned that Cortana had sacrificed herself as a final act of contrition. She couldn't undo the wrong she had committed, but she had attempted to set things right. He had been there, and he couldn't save her. We all grieve differently, he finally replied. Do you, though? The mechanics might be different from what I've read, but the hurt is still the same. That's what he got for telling her to go learn. Are you a therapist now? I'm a quick study, but you already know that. Just as he was quick to shove emotion aside every time. He was a Spartan 2 indoctrinated from an early age to put the mission above all else. Mission's first mindset was crucial to success. And that success had helped ensure the well-being of the entire human race time and again. As a leader, he had to be focused, prepared, effective. There wasn't room for anything else. The personal downtime he did have was spent overseeing his and his team's welfare, optimizing health, armor, and weapons, training on a new technology, and simulations. And when finally he closed his eyes, it was to sleep, not to delve into his feelings. Most emotions were problems easily solved, otherwise they were ignored. But it was getting increasingly harder to find the headspace to dump the things he didn't want to face. His cup overfloweth, as Kelly would have said. Even if he wanted to grieve, what would it serve? Cortana's 7-year lifespan had ticked down like a quiet, persistent bomb. Rapancy loomed in the shadows. From the moment she chose him as a partner, she was already on the borrowed time, and he'd been powerless to stop it. He was always going to lose her, and then, impossibly, she overcame her limitations, betrayed everything that she once was, what they were, and it gutted him. She came to her senses and was, in her final moments, the Cortana that he knew. And then she sacrificed herself for the greater good, and it burned him inside. Besides acknowledging it, what else was he supposed to do? Chief, Joy prompted. It's done. Let's just leave it at that. I'm not sure that's a good idea. He released a controlled breath to still the anger that wanted to rise from within him. Cortana had caused so much chaos and damage. Yes, she'd had a moment of clarity, an epiphany, and a change of heart, whatever you wanted to call it. But then she was gone, while millions across the galaxy were left to pick up the pieces. How could she not be angry? It's complicated. Joy rolled her eyes at the answer. Really? Hadn't noticed. If it makes you feel better, it's complicated for me too, she paused, losing the sarcasm. Chief, I know we haven't known each other for long, but if you ever want to talk, there's no one who understands the situation like I do. While he appreciated the offer, it wasn't going to happen. Though to be honest, in the last few days, he'd felt his guard slipping. He wanted to believe in Joyous the way that he'd once believed in Cortana. When the young AI cracked a joke or executed a task with brutal efficiency, a voice inevitably whispered in his mind, remember what she did, what Cortana had done. And so he kept his distance. He knew they weren't the same, and yet, when he'd first met Cortana, he wondered how he was supposed to treat her. She was a UNSC asset like his armor, or his array of weapons, a piece of equipment. And he always treated his equipment with the utmost care. But he had learned very quickly that his simplistic view had been far too narrow. The AI created from Dr. Halsey living in his brain was far more progressive, complex, and intuitive than he'd ever imagined possible. She was no mere battlefield asset. He'd been drawn in, formed a partnership in the same way he had with the rest of his team. Even when he knew she was on borrowed time. Maybe that had been a mistake, but he didn't regret it, not for a single second. Do you know what else my name means? Joyous asked suddenly. He shook his head. It means I'm a weapon, quite literally, I guess. Dr. Halsey was right when she called me that, wasn't she? Cortana. She gave me a second chance, Chief. She offered me an identity, a place to belong by your side. I know I can't replace her, and I'm not trying to. I don't even want to. What do you want? I want to make a difference, the way that you make a difference. I can do so much more. I know you can, he said, and he meant it. You helped carry us this far. Without you, Esherim, the Harbinger, they might still be out there. Esparza groaned and threw a hand over his brow, his voice gruff with sleep. Speak of the devil. He sat up and rubbed his eyes, then glanced between them. What happened down there anyway? You guys were gone for 3 days. Did you find her? The Harbinger, I mean? Found and neutralized, John answered. Esparza scratched his thick beard. Good, that's really good, Jaga. Jaga is dead? Esherim is dead. The Harbinger is dead. Now can we finally get the hell out of this ring? Joy drew in a deep, simulated breath and released an audible sigh. Sorry to break it to you, but I don't think we're going anywhere. Isn't that right, Chief? Esparza's hands fell limply into his lap. No, 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 no. We were just doing this mission. That's what you said. John cracked half a smile. The missions change. They always do, Esparza and Joy said in unison, one regretful and one happy. Chapter 4. UNSC Casa della Esparza, June 4th, 2560. John's boots echoed against the metal floor as he moved through the hangar bay of the FFG 611, scanning the contents of each cargo bin with a tactical eye. Joyce's voice cut through the silence. Chief, I've cataloged the remaining munitions. We should optimize for quick deployment and balance firepower. Balanced, he answered, hefting a box of ammunition onto his shoulder. We need to be ready for anything. Esparza trailed behind him with a crate of frag grenades. You think this is enough firepower? The chief glanced over at the growing arsenal they'd spent the day gathering in the debris field. Some they'd store here on the frigate, and the rest would be stored on the dropship in the armory. It'll have to be. He set the boxes in the Pelican's ramp, noting the sheen of sweat on the pilot's brow. Are you okay? Just peachy, Esparza hoisted the crate onto the pile, then rested there with his arms draped over the box. You can sit this one out if you need to. No, I'm going. Someone has to keep this ride out of harm's way. Suit yourself. A large part of the man's bravado was driven by fear and separation anxiety. John wasn't sure how long Esparza could last on the fuel like that. But who was he to make him sit on the sidelines? It seemed better for the pilot to keep busy than to stay here, where there's worry and isolation, and that would get the better of him. After retrieving a poly crate of M40 assault rifles and another ammo box, he headed up the ramp and into the troop bay. This should be the last of it. Let's start loading up. You got it, big guy? Maneuvering around the payload they'd secured earlier during their salvage run, John set the crate and box on the floor, then eyed their day's prize. In the bay's dim light, the payload, banged up metallic casings gave off a dull glow. An Ares tactical nuclear weapon rested safely within its confines. The small fusion destructive device was not as substantial a load as he would have preferred, generating a 10 kiloton yield, but they were lucky to field any type of nuclear weapons at all. The small nuke would still inflict considerable amounts of damage. I'm noticing a drop off in the internet. 1 second, guys. I want to make sure that catches up. It's back. Thank you. After stowing the rifles in the dropship armory, Esparza gave the bomb a wide berth as he handed John the box of frag grenades. You sure it's safe to keep that thing here? It's stable for now. Once they'd completed the restock, Esparza fired up the Pelican as John shut off the area's energy barrier and generator. Returning to the ship, he checked the payload and its bindings again before advancing to the cockpit where Joy's vacant look above the console's holopad told him she was currently running through the dropship systems for one final check. He clamped a hand on Esparza's shoulder. Keep it steady this time. No pressure, the pilot muttered, increasing power to the dropship's engines and then pivoting its thrusters to execute a 180-degree turn. Just carting around a nuclear weapon here. The Pelican lifted off the hangar bay floor. Flying her out is at least easier than parking her in. Is that a statement, or are you trying to convince yourself? Joy asked. Maybe a little bit of both. Joy locked her hands behind her back, gazing out the windshield as the pilot's words proved true, and they glided away from the damaged ship with only a minor scratch or two. Yippee-ki-yay, she said cheerfully as they headed into the debris field. Course is set. Let's go rustle up some cows. Yippee-ki-yay, Esparza echoed. What exactly did you learn last night? Means we're trading assault rifles for lassos, John said. Joy grinned. He gets it. Viewing the halo ring through the lens of Earth's 19th century Wild West was one way to look at it. Without a doubt, Kelly would agree. His teammate had a thing for old Earth music and history, once telling him how mankind had managed herds of cattle, driving them across vast grazing lands on horseback. Joy must have found some interesting historical records within the frigate. Old Earth history, she told Esparza. Fascinating stuff. I don't even want to know, he replied. Chief, are you sure this is a good idea? It's a good idea, Joy cut in. All my ideas are good. Trust me, it'll work. So says the confidence of youth. Still, you might get more than you bargained for, messing with those things. Those things are called sentinels. And since I have Despondent Pyre's encephalon core, which technically puts me in charge of this ring, I don't have to force them to help us. I just need to give the appropriate commands. Esparza's bark of laughter rang through the cockpit. Technically sounds a lot like kind of, or maybe, or gee, I sort of think so. Joy ignored his concerns. 2 sentinels are all we need. We won't be able to get close to Esheram's funeral or do any damage without them. The Harbinger had violently ripped the core from Zeta Halo's caretaker, the Monitor Despondent Pyre, and used it to begin a process she called the Reformation, intending to repair the damage done to the silent auditorium by Cortana's explosion and free others of her kind imprisoned within the ring. Joy had snatched the Monitor's core from the Harbinger's grasp, which gave her nearly unfettered access to the ring's systems, now that Despondent Pyre was gone. But the ring was without its caretakers. It was currently being maintained by dozens of sub-monitors, but not to gain their notice if they did. But they tried not to gain their notice if they didn't have to. The Harbinger had violently wrangling 1 or 2 sentinels should keep us under the radar, John assured the pilot. And if it doesn't, then we'll have to do things the hard way. Please let's not. Let's play it safe and avoid the hard way as much as possible. When most of the Banished are gathered in one place, playing it safe is the last thing I'm gonna do. Esparza groaned. I hate to say it, Chief, but you've got a point. John glanced back at the payload secured in the troop bay. It had taken most of the day playing cat and mouse with the Banished patrols as they scavenged the debris field to find it. Getting it to the funeral was priority, and he planned to make it count. As they navigated through the floating island fragments, Joyous generated a grid map over the Pelican's holodeck highlighting their intended destination. Esparza turned it off, his expression growing rigid. I know my way out there. They have been to the House of Reckoning before. The place where Esparza had endured Jagar Adumnai's brief but brutal torture, where John had been drawn into a rescue mission resulting in the deaths of Jaga and Esheram, which had no doubt left incredible scars in the Banished morale. 3 kilometers out, the Pelican's radar went wild. Red threat indicators populated across the targeting grid, the Origin slowly coming into visible range as the dropship neared the House of Reckoning's airspace. 3 colossal dreadnoughts were hovering above the Banished stronghold, while hundreds of smaller craft, banshees, ghosts, and phantoms swarmed around the vessel like angry insects, offering a stark reminder of the impenetrable defenses being faced. There was no feasible way to approach the House of Reckoning directly. Good thing they had no intention of doing so. The Pelican veered toward a smaller island fragment nearby, descending along its far side and past the shorn topography layer where the dark maw of its interior revealed at least 60 aggressor and constructor sentinels sifting methodically through the debris and the damage. The glow of their searchlights and laser beams glinted off the small metallic bodies as they scanned for salvageable materials, cut through the debris, and collected the assets. The Pelican bypassed the busy area and made for a quieter section nearby. Without the lights emitting from the sentinels' vigilant work, the island interior here was shrouded in darkness, though its shorn innards spilled in the daylight, revealing a twisted falling of curling wires, cables, conduits, cut through by broken beams, bent girders, and alloys, so damaged that there was no way to tell what had been done before the fracturing. The dropship eased down through the chaotic scene to hover near a massive hexagonal beam. "All right," Esparza said, "this is as close as I'm going to get you. Keep out of sight. When I call for extraction, be ready." "Will do. Good luck, Chief." "Roger that." John retrieved Joy's chip from the Pelican port and slipped it into the back of his helmet. Her presence flowed into his mind, cold as an Arctic stream, and disorienting for just a second as he headed into the troop bay and loaded up with as much firepower as he could take. M40 assault rifle, M50 sidekick pistol, CQS 48 bulldog shotgun, combat knife, extra magazines, and 2 slings of frags. After that, he unbound the payload, tucked the case under his arm, and waited at the tail end of the compartment for the ramp to descend. An updraft swirled into the bay as he leapt the 3 meters from the ramp onto the beam, his boots automatically adjusting traction as he traversed the smooth alloy surface. The Pelican fell away and banked, disappearing underneath the island. Making quick time, John engaged his helmet's internal lamps and followed the alloy beam to the island's dark interior. Several meters below the beam, he saw an exposed corridor that had once intersected with another. In this junction was a tangled nest of fiber optic filaments. He dropped down and stowed the payload in the nest before continuing on, navigating across, over and under the jumbled obstacles in his path until he was close to the aggressors that worked diligently in a concentrated area, combing through the remains of the destruction. "No wonder they're here," Joy's voice echoed in his helmet. "There's a conspectus hub in the rubble. Every event, no matter how big or small, is gathered in there, in that data. They're attempting to retrieve the logs. That should keep them occupied." John lifted his right hand and opened his palm as Joy deployed the holographic emitters in his glove to manifest her form. "Any preference?" he asked. She tapped her finger against her chin and studied her options. After a second, she pointed in the direction of a pair of aggressors. "Those 2 over at the edge there. They're working far enough away from the others." A rough layout of the area appeared on his helmet's interior display, along with a highlighted path through the island interior workings and debris. John wasted no time, Joy disappearing back into his suit as she tackled the route. His Mjolnir, incredibly efficient for high-speed yet agile action despite its weight and size, its advanced servos and dampeners allowing him to move like a ghost through the wreckage. Each step was precise and controlled, the armor system automatically adjusting to maintain perfect balance. He ducked beneath beams, leapt over debris, and swung through the jungle gym of conduits and wiring. Landing on a support girder, he crouched and eased across it toward where 2 sentinels had been using their reconstitution emitter to cut through a large section of alloy housings. "As long as you don't target them, they shouldn't acknowledge you," Joy said. "Get me in as close as possible." When they were right above the targets, John stopped. He opened his hand once more and Joy appeared. "You sure you can make it?" he asked. "I'll backtrack if I get stuck." She walked off his hand and vanished into the fiber optic cables that ran directly above one of the sentinels. Joy had a unique understanding of the ring, and she learned some equally unique ways to navigate through the systems. In less than 10 seconds, the laser beam from both sentinels deactivated and they turned in eerie unison John's direction. Their impulse drives hummed quietly as they glided effortlessly towards one of them, coming to a stop a hair's breadth away from its faceplate. 2 appendages, with elbow-like joints and manipulators at the end, stuck out from the central chassis, consisting of a domed headset above a curved housing that contained a reconstitution emitter beam for repairs, an offensive sterilization beam for security, and an anti-gravity unit for impulse drive. Joy's hologram appeared, sitting atop the illuminated panel in the Sentinel's head. She waved. "He's cute. Can we keep him?" "Sorry, I don't do pets." "Only because you've never had one." "Wait, have you?" He gestured to the other Sentinels in the area. While they didn't seem to have noticed any divergence of this pair, he couldn't be sure. "Are they good?" "All set, nothing to worry about." "Nice work, let's go." Joy and her Sentinel stuck close to his 6 as John retraced his path through the island's wrecked interior to retrieve the stowed payload. We'll take it from here, Joy said. Glancing from atop the sentinels, she rode to the second one floating beside them. Through a command he could not see or hear, the second approached, and John held out the payload as it gathered the case with its smart matter loom. Let's go. John took the same route back to where he'd first exited the Pelican. Once there, he walked to the edge of the massive beam and gazed into the ring's open break. As ordered, Exo 216 was nowhere to be seen. The pilot had a knack for lying low and then pulling out of somewhere in rough situations, and John had a feeling this night would be no different. He turned away from the view and tipped his head back quietly, plotting his path that would lead him up the exposed, jagged side of the island's surface. In seconds, he was on the move, deploying his wrist-mounted grapple shot, its hook attached to a girder 6 meters above him, the high tensile line pulling him up at a speed that would seriously injure or even kill a conventional soldier. This is fun, Joy's delight spilled through his helmet speakers as she followed him with the sentinels. I bet this is just like the Wild West. If you say so. 4 meters from topside. The Master Chief slowed as he scanned the area for hostiles, but the island's surface appeared uninhabited. Satisfied, he launched himself the final distance, landing crouched in a meadow, rifle unslung at the ready. The sentinels hovered quietly on either side of him. Insects buzzed and wildflowers. Small, furry animals scurried through the grass, and flightless birds picked at the ground below the corpse of nearby brushes. All in all, the place appeared secure for the time being. He straightened to his full height. Looks like this smaller fragment sheared off from the larger island, where our friends are gathered, Joy said. Fortunately, it didn't drift too far and got held up in the ring's gravity field. Plot the quickest path across the island, John told her. One of the sentinels suddenly rose into the sky. Nothing like a bird's eye view, Joy remarked. After a moment, she continued. Good news, the fragment is smaller than I thought, and we'll have to cross that ridge. She highlighted a dark mound of mountainous terrain in the distance and a nav map built in the display. Time? We have about 2 hours until dark, 44 kilometers in under 2 hours, and we need to be in position for recon before the sun goes down. John immediately took off, the sentinels reuniting and keeping pace beside him as he ran across the meadow. Altitude increasing as he started up a virgin path to the ridgeline. After a considerable sprint across the ridge and the long hike across and through a rock-strewn conifer forest, he finally emerged at the edge of the island, where a 600-meter-wide chasm of space separated them from the island that held the House of Reckoning. Despite the distance, numerous hostiles posted on his targeting screen. The Banished had gathered in mass to pay respects to their fallen leader. Feels like an entire Banished military on that island, Joy said, still seated in the Sentinel, now floating quietly by his side. He glanced for a second at the Sentinel, and the payload held securely in its grasps. For once, it's not a bad thing. Chapter 5, Island Fragment, June 4th, 2560. From her perch atop the first Sentinel, Joy Hughes directed its companion to release the payload carefully onto the ground. Then she linked its optics to the audio to the Master Chief's HUD before dispatching it across the chasm between the two islands. Its diminutive frame gliding swiftly and silently to its destination, no arms or deviations from air support. She told the Chief as the Sentinel continued its flight path beneath a cluster of massive Banished warships guarding the area, its camera feeding back real-time images. So far, so good, coming up on the headquarters. The Banished had constructed their modular headquarters in a dominating location, at the end of the valley where the topography had been shorn in two as a result of Zeta Halo's fracturing. Held fast with the massive extenders sinking deep into the structural pillars of the valley wall. The House of Reckoning perched in an elevated position in the valley's narrow cleft. Even from the back, it served its purpose, its utilitarian red and gray exterior designed for intimidation and defense, while serving multiple functions. rising several levels, the first three of which were served as arenas where human prisoners were pitted against the banished in ruthless trials. It culminated in the fourth level housing Escherum's command center. The second sentinel reached its destination, its alloy shade blending in perfectly along with the long, staggered hexagonal pillars of the cliff's fragmented facade. The sentinel latched on to the exposed beam below the House of Reckoning and began ascending up and around the structure, crawling to the top of the plateau to get a high vantage view down the valley. More red and gray, Joy commented. I'm going to be honest, I'm not a big fan. Agreed. John knelt to open the payload's case. I'm partial to green. She stifled her laugh. I wouldn't have guessed, she said dryly, casting a glance at his muted green armor before adding, I bet I can guess your second favorite color. He was supposed to say blue, but didn't play along, instead focusing his attention on the payload's security panel, which displayed a rudimentary interface requiring a specific code to unlock the case. His fingers hovered over the inputs, ready to enter the sequence that would prime the destructive contents. The influx of data that began streaming to Joy's optical feed from the Sentinel was dizzying and rich, instantly triggering her hunger for more nature to consume, assimilate, and catalog every vivid detail. It was like a visual smorgasbord over there. A motley assemblage of Geralhani, Sanghili, Kigyar, Ungoy, Lekgolo, and various humans filled a valley and spread up its slopes, spilling onto the plateaus, framing either side of the House of Reckoning. Each species was distinctly different, yet all unified under a common banner of rebellion. Countless land vehicles and aircraft were scattered throughout the area, a chaotic matrix of machines stolen or salvaged from the remnants of past wars, each one prominently marked in some fashion with a bold red livery synonymous of the Banished. I'm aware of basic Banished philosophy, but seeing all these species in one place is really extraordinary that Atriox could pull them all together like this. They're free to pirate, kill, and wage war, the Master Chief responded without looking up, all while under the protection of the Banished, as long as it benefits the whole and increases their overall power. After life in the Covenant is hard, it's a hard option for some to pass up. He was right, of course. Banished philosophy had resulted in widespread appeal and influence, allowing any species to join and rise in the ranks through merit and contribution was infinitely more enticing than the previous millennia of hierarchical oppression within the Covenant. And their goal to increase power and follow Atriox's motto of free will, as long as it fostered Banished growth and power, kept things simple. Just days ago, she'd been oblivious to their very existence and the diverse array of alien species consisting within the ranks. And while she had access to the Chief's data set, and now the experience of clashing with some of these mercenaries across the Halo's fractures surface, nothing could have prepared her for the concentrated spectacle she now witnessed. Well, good news. It looks like the gang's all there. Should we send in the payload? Not yet. We'll wait till the funeral ends. There's 12 minutes before nightfall. Might as well settle in and see if we can learn anything useful. Good point. Joy took advantage of the downtime to observe and learn. The Geralhani, appropriately called brutes, were the most aggressive of the bunch. No surprise here. She'd witnessed their volatile temper and brutal assault firsthand. Currently, they feasted around fires and fought in makeshift arenas, expressing their grief and rage at the loss of their leader with axes, hammers, and fists, their ferocity on full display. Somewhere between Ursin and Simeon in character, their bulky, beastly forms towered over the other's presence, dwarfed only by a small group of Megalogolo, whose sheer size and strength could easily crush any opposition. The Lekgolo's collective nature was fascinating, each hulking warrior formed by smaller orange worm-like creatures bound together to create a single hive mind. This entity possessing immense strength, resilience, and tactical awareness. They were made even more daunting by their shields and armor, fashioned from the same plating as warships, judging from the available mission records that these Megalogolo, or hunters, apparently just one of many configurations these worms can assume. These were among the toughest foes to the Master Chief and the Spartans that they had ever encountered. She bookmarked them for later study and moved on, noticing several small squads stalking the perimeter of the valley and roaming among the clans like Coiled Springs, Sankhili, commonly known as elites. These Saurian warriors seemed to be strategically placed within the ranks. Cunning, intelligent, and extremely dangerous, they were driven by a strong code of honor and loyalty to their clans. They enhance their innate strength and agility with energy shields built into their armor and are adept in both long range and hand to hand combat. Honor in battle is paramount, yet some are more notorious for their rash aggression and zeal to eliminate foes at any cost. Have you ever seen a Sankhili child? She asked suddenly. Why? Your data indicates that they raise their warriors from childhood. Many species do. What about humans? His head came up as he considered the question. They let their children be children for the most part. Was that how it was for you? The Master Chief stared at her for a long moment, and then returned to his task. Noted. Doesn't like talking about his childhood. Because his early history wasn't need to know for her original mission parameters, she has no knowledge of his past, which only made her more curious. With a sigh, she returned to her studies. Let's see, the Kigyar, they've perched on the slopes and in large packs on the valley floor below the House of Reckoning. Their movements restless, their beaks clicking together, spiny quills flaring in obvious agitation. By appearance, they do seem somewhat weak, she said, noting their hunched postures and slender builds. Don't underestimate them, they can be vicious. I remember. They had encountered them many times already, the creatures colloquially referred to as jackals, display of ambition and defiance. Joy, amplify the Sentinel audio, the chief said. On it. Something is interfering with the feed, though. Give me a second.